Hi, everyone. We're just going to give everyone a couple seconds here to get logged in, and then we're going to start the show. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're excited to have today's webinar co-hosted by the Oracle Enterprise and Cloud Observability and Management Team, the New York Oracle User Group, and Oracle partner Viscosity North America. We've got Anusha, John, and Steve from the Oracle Enterprise Management Product Management Team presenting for us today. Steve will actually be moderating between questions live, and Anusha and John will be presenting for us. So yes, this is a live webinar, so feel free to submit questions in the Q&A field, not the generic chat field. If you do submit something to the chat field, I'll help you out there, but if you've got questions for our speakers today, please look at the Q&A field. All right, they'll get to your questions as they can, and Steve will help bring questions up live. And they've also got their teammate Karen, who will be able to help answer typed out questions to you as well. So she'll probably be able to give you guys some good feedback during the webinar today. So of course, please submit what you can, take advantage of this hour that you have with Oracle today. Today's presentation is co-hosted as well by Viscosity and NYOUG. Like I mentioned earlier, we've been so excited to have, 3 years now of partnered webinars together. So thank you. I've got Coleman and Rob here from NYOUG. My name is Monica Lee. I'm the marketing director here at Viscosity. We're a full Oracle Stack consulting firm, but I'll get into that a little more in a bit. First, I'm going to let Rob tell us a little bit about NYOUG. Then I'll tell you about Viscosity, and we'll introduce today's speakers to you.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. I'm Rob Edwards. I'm treasurer with the New York Oracle Users Group. NYOUG was formed in 1984 for the exchange of ideas, assistance, and support among users of Oracle software products. We can be found on Twitter, Meetup, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on our own website, nyoug.org. We would also like to thank Viscosity North America for co-hosting this series of webinars with us for the last 3 years. Monica?
Thank you so much, Rob. And I know those of you who are our regulars, you're probably tired of this, but it is my job to remind you Viscosity exists. And if you need any help, any consulting, professional services, anything with your Oracle databases, your Oracle investments, we're here to support you if you need. So again, if you're new to this, welcome. And if not, bear with me. We've got 3 major pillars that Viscosity is based on, and that's data, apps, and cloud. So if anything in these 3 pillars speak to you, please let me know if you need help with anything. Across the bottom, we've got a couple things that will cross all 3 pillars. So for the most part, our core expertise is in Oracle database, including RAC, Oracle Apex. We perform near zero downtime migrations for our customers, performance tuning, high availability. We've also got decades of experience with infrastructure, including engineered systems. The last couple of years, we've been upgrading our customers to Oracle Database 19C. And now we're prepping everyone for 23C, super exciting. And we do host a lot of workshops, live training as well through orapub.com, which I'll talk about a little later. Let's see. So this page just shows a couple of my upper management and our consultants that help out our clients that are also in the Oracle ACE program. So hopefully you've seen presentations and sessions or own books from some of these guys. They're constantly out there providing new content to the Oracle community. So if you recognize them, great. I'm so glad you're involved in the Oracle community. And if not, check them out or check out user groups and conferences near you where you'll see folks like them, others in the ACE program, and other just great speakers to get that free to maybe a little investment of training. All right, this page shows some of the books that our guys have written as well. Hopefully you've got some of these. The ones I like to point out right now are our newest ones, Oracle Database Performance Tuning here, Upgrading Oracle Databases, and this recent one from APress, Oracle on Docker. I mentioned OraPub earlier. OraPub was developed by a former Oracle employee and Oracle ACE director, Craig Shalahammer. It's now a great place for resources and training, and it's powered by Viscosity now as of January 2022. So we're super excited to have Craig and Katrina Shalahammer on our team. They are amazing. Craig does a lot of our live virtual training through OraPub. So please check OraPub out. It's also where we host all of our recorded webinars. So like today's, you can either go through NYOUG or orapub.com to find the recording and slide deck for today's webinar. All right, and I think I just said all of that. There are paid memberships here as well, where you just get a couple more perks. We've actually got some really cool, exciting things coming up soon that deal with our new Oracle chatbot, where you can ask it many questions and filter through a bunch of resources that Viscosity provides. So more on that, hopefully later this month. But I always recommend this to folks. The training on here is so good that a lot of people actually get their companies to reimburse them for the annual memberships. There are different tiers, so check them out. And I would definitely ask your manager if you can get reimbursed for it, because it's only going to help your organization out. And then finally, we're going to be at Kscope. If anyone here has been to this conference, it's Oracle Development Tools user group. It's great. It's going to be outside of Denver this year. We'll be there. So if you're there, come find me. And with that, events.viscosityna.com, that's where you can find and register for more webinars like today's. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rob, and he's going to introduce our speaker.
Hey, thank you, Monica. Anusha is a senior product manager, and John is an architect, both with the Enterprise and Cloud Observability and Management Group at Oracle Corporation. Anusha and John, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rob. Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, whoever in the different time zones. Today, my name is Anusha, and I have John, who's also called JB, and also Karen, who would be helping me with any questions that I won't be able to answer. So ADDM Spotlight turns expert tactical advice into strategic performance optimization insights. We will know why it is tactical advice into strategic performance more and more as we move forward. We will know how ADDM Spotlight is one of that feature which really helps us in making strategic decisions with the information we get. So today's agenda is going to be this: why ADDM Spotlight? And before we jump on to ADDM Spotlight, let's first understand what ADDM is and what are the value propositions, use cases for ADDM Spotlight, and what are the actual features that we have today in this. ADDM Spotlight. So before we jump on to ADDM Spotlight, we need to understand what ADDM is. And this ADDM Spotlight is a newly developed feature which is introduced in Enterprise Manager Cloud Control 13.5 RU13. ADDM which stands for Automatic Database Diagnostic Monitor, is one of the powerful features of self-managing Oracle databases. And it is underutilized by a lot of customers. Though its release has happened in 10G, it's still not very well used by a lot of our customers. I'm sorry for that, yeah. ADDM gives recommendations, which implements those recommendations. So implementing those recommendations sometimes involves some confusion on significant cost versus effort. So that's what puts a lot of DBAs in a position to contemplate whether the recommendations given by ADDM is good enough, the cost that implementing is versus the benefit that we are getting out of implementing the recommendation is where most of us get stuck with. So to answer those questions, we have a lot of other values or the parameters that we look at to make sure that whatever the recommendations that we implement are worthwhile. ADDM diagnoses bigger problems and find issues. It gathers information from ADDM task execution, which is taken from AWS snapshots. This whole thing makes it little tactical in nature, as AWS snapshots are taken 1 hour, which are all customizable, but still it's sometimes a little difficult. ADDM Spotlight aggregates findings and recommendations over days and weeks to identify the issues, which makes it eliminate the chronic issues and also useful in solving the complex problems. This enables DBAs to holistically assess the impacts and the benefits of the findings and recommendations we get out of ADDM Spotlight. ADDM. How does ADDM do this? It implements mostly on the DB time. As and when there is an execution that is run, it ensures and checks how much time is it taken for each execution, and all the analysis is done on that part. And ADDM Spotlight tries to shrink the database to improve the performances. Hence, the recommendations and the findings are more or less on analyzing the DB time. So findings are mostly the statements about the DB time, and you see more or less the description of why this specific finding is there and what is the impact associated with the specific finding. And all of that can be all of that you can find it in the ADDM Spotlight and as well in ADDM. So recommendations are also associated with the findings, even if your recommendations, findings, you can do something about it. So DB time shrink, and sometimes you get multiple recommendations for one finding. So depending on the combination of the columns that we see, you make a right decision whether this is a right recommendation to implement it or not. And also benefit is one of the columns that we have, which talks about how much impact will this specific recommendation has. As I said earlier, ADDM analyzes AWS snapshots upon completion. So as it is 1 hour, it sometimes is tactical in nature. Value propositions, as we see that why this is important. One of the major reasons is because it is analyzing the DB time and trying its best to shrink the DB time. It increases the performance. So this improves the service levels of the database. And also, if you have any new DBA who's coming in and not knowing, stuck with an issue, then they need an expert advice. Instead of running around and finding and asking people about how do I fix this issue, we have clear description of how you can fix this issue. So this also increase staff productivity and reduce time in analyzing, which is already done by ADDM for us. So this helps in identifying and solving chronic issues and give you potential solutions and benefits. So there are few use cases that we have, which I think most of us get stuck with the question sometimes. What do we do with the scheduler waits? Should we add more CPU? Should we not? Again, that's another confusion and dilemma we sometimes get stuck with. What is with expensive consulting DBA? You wanted to ask them for the recommendations. Is it worth enough to have a consulting DBA? What do we do with the bottlenecks, with the bad jobs that we are running? How is performance affecting? How do we solve that? Which SQL is taking most time? And it is one of the reasons why it's like reducing the performance. How do we fix that SQL? So all of this we can answer with one solution that we have, ADDM Spotlight. Okay. So this is how it looks. This is the page. As you see, as you log in into Oracle Enterprise Manager, you choose a database and you'll find ADDM under Performance menu. And also on the recommendation section in DB Home, which I will show in the demo more or less about it. So here, if you see, there is a quick select where you'll get multiple options about last day or last 7 days or last round, and more options, and also time range, which lets you choose different time. And you have a time zone option. As you see here, there's availability status with a yellow icon, which tells us when the DB is restarted or started or bounced, more of that information. We have summary timeline. This is called summary timeline, where it gives you a quick glimpse of what's happening in a database, from what time to what time, what are the changes, or what exactly has happened with the database and the performance, and do we have any findings, and what is happening with the whole thing, which I will be explaining more or less in the further slides. And we have findings, recommendations, and database parameters. The findings I've been mentioning about, these are the ones. And the recommendations, for each associated findings, you'll have a recommendation. And all of this, So all of these findings and recommendations you see are aggregated all over the runs or the ADDM task runs that has happened. So it gives you a longer period of time on the entire workload. So expert analysis is done if there is any incident that happened in this particular time frame that we see. Summary timeline. So here, this is the one which I just showed you about, where you get a quick glimpse of what happened in a database in a specific time window. Findings and recommendations are categorized over this time period. And also they are stacked. As you see, these different colors also mean different things. You could see in the right-hand side, green color is CPU. Here I chose for a very long period. That's why the bars are a little shorter. But if you choose 1 hour, then you could see it in much more detailed way of the whole analysis. And we have a new thing, a new feature, which is a new enhancement, that is event annotation. Event annotation. This is an enhancement to the feature, which will be released in RU16. As the name suggests, it annotates the time series chats with events that occurred in the database. Events like DB time, DB restart. Sometimes as a database user, we are not aware when the database is rebooted or restarted. This will give us the exact time of the database restart. As in when you see the DB is restarted, as I showed in previous slides about availability status, it will help you and it will help you know when the DB is restarted. Apart from the restarts, it also identifies the configuration changes that happen over a period of time. It gives you before and after. This is off by default. You have to check box to see the event annotations. Findings categories. So finding is a whole section where the majority of the work is done for the analysis. That's where we divide it into the categories, which are similar to what you see in the weight classes. This is completely based on the DB time, and it has similar purpose of what you see in the weight class as well. It has different filters, and as you see the categories, these are these are few categories. Top SQL, where you could see any DB time specific to a SQL that is executed. So more information on the SQL ID, how much is it consuming, how much CPU is it taking, how much time is it taking, all that information you could see in this finding section. And we have application, we have IO, and which gives you why this finding is there and the description as well as we go forward. As I've mentioned earlier, that the color branding that are stacked up in a summary timeline, there are different colors to it. So CPU is green, IO is blue, application is orange. So it's easy for you to differentiate whenever you see the summary timeline to understand what is that that needs our attention. If you see a big green line, then yeah, CPU consumption, probably that's where the issue lies. So you can like quickly go and look at that. As I said, that it is an aggregation of all the ADDM runs that were there. So findings and recommendations, aggregations. So frequency, so these are three important columns, I would say, which are important to make a decision if you want this specific recommendation or finding to be implemented or not. Frequency, it talks about how many times did this particular issue has occurred in a period of time that you've chosen. So number of ADDM runs, and the specific issue is found in those number of ADDM runs. So here, if you see, the first one says 19 of 23 is the frequency. So 19 times this has occurred out of 23 runs. So you can gauge if this is an important recommendation or important issue that needs your attention or not. We have overall impact, which talks about what's the overall impact you get if you implement the specific finding or the recommendation. How much time or how much impact does it have on the specific finding that is there? And maximum benefit, that's the maximum ratio of DB time to the total time within that AWR snapshot. We also have average active sessions where you also can gauge how much time is it taking for that particular session. So more or less, as I said earlier, it is about shrinking the DB time. The main focus is on the DB time. So with all the parameters that you see, with the frequency, max impact, and overall impact, is it the right decision to make? Yes or no? If there is less impact, do we really need to put our efforts there? So all that questions can be answered by these are the important columns. So which you could like see it in findings and recommendations tabs, which I will be showing in the demo. So this is one of the things that I would like you guys to have a look at. As I've been talking about, DB time is the one that very important parameters that we look at when we talk about the findings. So recommendations are the actions that we have. So this is one of the things that is IO is one of the findings. Here it says top segments by user IO or clusters, and it is occurred 23 of 23 times. So what are the recommendations does it have? Sometimes, depending on the finding, there could be multiple recommendations. So here we see two recommendations. One that talks about the index, and the other one is talking about the run segment advisor. So as it says about the rational is another important column in recommendations that we get is why is this happening and what does the recommendation do? As you see here, IO stats for object. There are so many physical reads and there are physical writes. So this is something that will help you answer the questions that you will have. On a similar note, I brought this up with the CPU specific. As we know that CPU is quite an important resource that every every execution is fighting for. So it also gets multiple recommendations, sometimes depending on the findings that we have. As you see here in the CPU usage, it talks about 76% of host CPU is being consumed. All wait time will be inflated by wait for CPU. So what is that we can do with this, right? So it talks about in the application analysis, there is one specific SQL that is consuming SQL ID, is responsible for 57% of the CPU consumption during an analysis period. So this is where our half of the CPU is going. But if you look at the frequency, that is 3 of 191, is it worth the effort? The overall benefit is just 1%. We don't have to implement this change, or if you want to, you can. Is it harming our system? Yes, no. Yes, we don't have to. No, then we can go ahead and do it. Like nothing, no harm. So all those questions and all those decision making is what makes it a tactical expert advice into the strategic performance insights. So these are the tabs that we have. ADDM Spotlight is broadly divided into these 3 categories, which are the highlight of ADDM Spotlight. Findings, recommendations, database parameters, which I would be explaining more on this. Let's begin with the findings section. These findings are taken by summarizing the data, as I said earlier, over a longer period of time, which gives you more confidence in implementing and knowing the findings and the recommendations. The analysis result identifies the potential performance bottlenecks during the time range. While hourly reports are useful, they may be sometimes unusual and one-time activity during this time range. As a result, viewing these results over a longer business meaningful time range may provide a better understanding of overall database performance, as it emphasizes on persistent and impactful issues, which you could say with the frequency column. These findings can also be filtered based on the categories such as CPU, top SQL, IO, and application, as I've mentioned earlier. And recommendations. So the recommendations will display recommendation against the findings that we got in the previous tab. One can access this information by the categories such as database parameters, SQL, and schema objects. Finding tab displays the impact, whereas recommendation talks about the benefit of the recommendation that it is doing. Any issue related to SQLs are prominent everywhere. So this comes handy if there is a newbie and want to tap into understanding the performance of a SQL query. Each recommendation has a benefit and an estimate of the portion of DB time that can be saved if implemented. These are composed of actions and rationals. One can apply these actions, which I would be showing in the demo, where how to do it and how not to. How do we go about if there is a recommendation? It also gives the estimated benefit. And each SQL recommendation sometimes display 2 options. One is view SQL text and run SQL advisor. By running SQL advisor, you could see what is that we need to do for that specific SQL. Next we have is database parameter. Database parameters, it talks about init parameters, which are very crucial to any database. Any change to this would have a global implication. ADDM Spotlight gives you reasons of why this issue is occurring and what are the possible ways to solve it. One of such is parameters change. As we know, as we saw in our previous slide, about event annotations, where I spoke of configuration changes, this is where those changes also come from or recommended. As we know, changing any database .init parameter could be risky and might sometime need to bounce the database. So again, with the rational and with the impact and with the frequency, we can make the decision. Here in the ADDM Spotlight, it shows multiple ways you can see the parameters, that is high impact on the performance, changed during a reporting time, the non-default values, and the recommended parameters. By clicking any of this checkbox, you could get the parameters, the parameters you wish to look at. I will now show the demo.
Hey, Anusha, just wanted to let you know we're getting a lot of great questions on the Q&A tab. So we've got folks behind the scenes getting those answered for folks. But again, wonderful questions and great content, Anusha.
Thank you. Give me a couple of seconds. I'm just figuring it out. JB, please chime in if there's anything you want to add. And Karen, you as well. Perfect.
You're doing great, Anusha.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, this is where you would find ADDM Spotlight. As we click onto this, this is where you could see. As I spoke about, quick select, these are the multiple options you get. For now, I'm just choosing 24 hours, where you could see a quick glimpse of what's happening in the specific time period. Okay, at 6 o'clock, that is a CPU thing. And at 8 p.m., we have an IO and application, DB internal and topic skill. So this is how the summary timeline can be very well used. And time range, you can customize it. If I choose May 3rd, and then I choose May 12th, apply. As I was speaking about availability status, it says database was last restarted on May 4th. As you hover about it, you could see it. If you do include annotations, you could see that blue arrow, which talks about at what time the changes occurred. And if you hover around, you could see what's the begin value and what's the end value. And yes, and all that. And you see the dotted lines when there is a DB restart. And yeah, this is the time zone. The categories, these are various other categories. I think I just spoke of 4 or 5 in my slides, but these are the other ones that you see. And as you go in the categories, so these are the columns that I spoke of: frequency, maximum impact, and overall benefits. In the top SQL, there are 49 recommendations. So it's an hyperlink that is created for users to have an easy access. So as you go in the recommendations, as you click there, so this is where you could see all the recommendations that is suggested. And as you see, the frequency is 215 out of 215. So it's almost occurring every time. Maybe I really need to run SQL Tuning Advisor. So if I do this 3 dotted line that we have, which I told you about, so if I run SQL Tuning Advisor, that is a direct way you can run it. You don't have to go and find out where this SQL Tuning Advisor is. So you can directly run it. And after that is run, you could see the report in a different tab. So you don't have to see where is the SQL advisor and how do I see the results and all that. Yeah. I'm just waiting for it to load. Okay, yeah, so this is the top SQL. I think I already showed you about CPU, how to manage that, and IO, where you get like multiple recommendations for one specific finding. Then we have recommendations. Here, if I choose SQL, where you could see multiple SQL IDs that are there. Again, each are different color coded. You could also gauge how many SQL IDs or SQL are running at one particular time. Here, I think I chose a longer period, hence the stats are a little smaller and thinner. And database parameters, which also tells you what is the parameter that we might need to change and the frequency. So, when such situation arises, probably we don't have to make any changes because the overall benefit is quite less. You could also, like, if you guys forgot anything I told you before, you can get that information here. Estimated benefit, all that information, you could see it by just hovering around this eye icon. We also have schema objects, which can be used in combination with different things. If you see here, segment advisor, and it also talks about what is the rationale is, it has so many physical reads and all. So for some specific schema objects, you could also see the recommendations here. And then we have database parameters, where we can see what's the high impact values that are there and all that. I think this is done. So yeah, so this is the SQL tuning advisor. You could see what is happened and completed. So you could like get more information on that as well. I guess that's all I have. I would like to conclude.
So Anusha, that was a great demonstration. Again, if folks have questions, go ahead and use the Q&A tab. Again, we've had some great questions regarding this functionality. Just in general, Anusha, I just thought I would mention some folks today may still not be using things such as the diagnostics or tuning pack, or even some of the other packs. And over time, there have been significant improvements in the observability that have been included in the Oracle database technology. In fact, just at one of the events last week, we had shown that if you just look at the database reference guide, Anusha, where there used to be about 350 pages with the Oracle 7 data dictionary, there's now over 2,700 pages when you look at the latest database release. So again, the team continues to put in new functionalities and capabilities like this. And so if you haven't had the opportunity to be using ADDM in your performance and diagnostics and tuning, here's a great opportunity to kind of revisit that again.
Thank you. So as I started with is it the tactical findings into strategic performance, I think now you guys kind of agree with me that yes, this feature does make it help you make the strategic decisions with all the findings that we have. So ADDM Spotlight sheds the light on the findings and recommendations to improve database performance. As we see that it identifies persistence and chronic issues, and also gives you the recommendations, which also gives you more confidence in prioritizing and implementing the changes. We also have a video on this, and there is also a blog and also the documentation, which I think I will just post it in a couple of seconds. But yeah. So,
I'll take care of that, Anusha. I'll drop some of those links into chat right now.
Thank you. That's all I have for you guys. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
That was great. Thank you.
Thank you, JB.
Hey, JB, just real quickly, I know some folks may be very seasoned using, ADDM and maybe some older kind of methods. Is there some top use cases where ADDM Spotlight really shines? You've got, a lot of experience in this area, so I figured I'd just ask.
Well, so ADDM Spotlight is really just aggregations of ADDM findings and recommendations, right? And so, ADDM is really sort of originally targeted at kind of DevOps use case, right? So as soon as the AWR snapshot finishes, let's stick ADDM on the data and figure out what happened during the last hour, right? And that's in case something bad happened, and you're going to have the answer to that bad thing right away, right? But, you know, so ADDM has a lot of expertise. I mean, we used to call it Graham Wood in a box back in the early days. That was when NG was first released, and Graham Wood, who's a personal friend of mine and mentor, and neighbor almost, he lives up the road kind of. He was, you know, he was the guy they brought in when our biggest and baddest customers had problems. You know, when Cars for Clunkers went down, Graham was on the phone with Thomas Currian for like 24 hours. You know? So it was that, he was that kind of guy, right? And so it's Graham Wood, and it's also lots of other expertise since Graham Wood, right? So as every release comes out, there's lots of new enhancements, lots of potential for you know, new things to observe and figure out. And ADDM, you know, incorporates all the latest you know, knowledge we have about diagnosing performance issues. It does kind of follow a release behind, right? Because you don't know the new problems you're introducing as soon as you introduce them, right? So there is a sort of a little bit of a lag there, but so, you know, the ability to, and ADDM applies DB time method very kind of religiously, right? And so one of the advantages we hope customers will get is by having a very consistent application of a proven methodology available at, you know, all the time, right? So the reason we think this is more strategic than tactical is because you aggregate over a larger time period. You know, ADDM findings are only about 1 hour. So 1 hour is not going to be your whole workload, right? So if you're really talking about optimizing for the big picture, you have to, you know, sort of see the big picture, right? So you know, that's really what this is about, you know. Anyway, so we really hope that ADDM will kind of have a resurrection, because it's a very anecdotal, but it's our feeling that ADDM is very underutilized. Why? Well, because we don't hear many complaints about it. And we know it's not perfect. So, you know, not enough complaints kind of means not enough usage, right? So we hope this will really kind of bring ADDM findings back, if you want to think of it that way, because I think it is an underutilized, very valuable piece of technology. So I don't know if I answered your question, Steve, but.
No, you did. And I think the key thing here is for folks in the user community, again, all that observability data is built into the database. And here is yet another way it's been unleashed. And I like the comment, Graham Wood in the box. So thank you for that. And again, we've dropped a few links into the chat. If you're not familiar with the latest capabilities within Enterprise Manager, there is a live lab that is out there. These can be taken at any time by you and your peers within your businesses. And in fact, if you even want to have the Oracle sales team help arrange a workshop on site, ask your Oracle sales rep. And then some folks not familiar, John, I know, with Operations Insight, and there's a, you know, try getting started lab on that as well. So again, some great resources, and again, great content, Anusha. And again, Karen and John, thank you for all the help on the Q&A.
Thank you.
So if there's not any other final questions at the moment, the Q&A is blank. We will work to close out the session. Monica.
Thank you guys so much. I hope everyone enjoyed this session today. We always appreciate when we have folks from Oracle come to share their expertise with us. And again, yes, this was a recorded session, and yes, you'll have access to it, but give us maybe a day before you can view it, but it will be sent through NYOUG as well as through Viscosity. And if there's anything else that they want, I guess everything on this Q&A, I can share that in our email, so you have live links to click on. And then, yeah, I think that's it. So last call for questions. If you guys think of something after the fact, you are more than welcome to email it to myself or Coleman, and we can get you guys in touch with the right person as well. Otherwise, we hope to see you guys at the next webinar. Thank you so much to our speakers today and all the team answering your questions. You'll have the email from me, so look for Monica Lee or NYOUG in your inbox. And I think that's it. Any other questions or comments from our speakers or panelists?
All good.
All righty. Well, we thank you guys so much. Guys, definitely check out all these resources from our speakers today. And we hope to see you again at the next one. We've got more webinars coming to you from the same team. So we're super excited for that. And we're glad that they decided to share this content for the first time with the public with us. So thank you guys so much. And we hope to see you guys at the next webinar. Take care and have a great day.
Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you.